Well, thanks everyone for coming. Hope it's a fun and educational event for you. And yeah, so I want to talk about user-owned AI. I'm sure some people heard of it, some people coming from one of the sites, so want to introduce that. So for my background, I've been doing machine learning for about 10 years before kind of jumping into the rabbit hole of crypto. I worked at Google Research. I was one of the major contributors to TensorFlow, which was what everybody used before PyTorch. And I was on the team that actually powered a lot of the natural language kind of research. We had actually models running on Google.com before Gemini took over. And I'm a co-author on a paper called Attention is All You Need, which is the technology that introduced transformers and is powering all of the current machine learning. Now, we started Near actually as an AI startup. We were trying to teach machines to code. And we ended up facing a challenge that you actually, to collect data, you at scale and effectively, needed to have a global payment network that is cheap for micropayments. And that's when we were stumbled, oh, actually blockchain is a really good tool for that. Now, this was 2018. And even back then, Ethereum and Bitcoin had higher fees than what we were paying people. So clearly didn't work. And so we ended up actually focusing on building a Near protocol, which is a scalable kind of layer one, specifically focused on, we can handle billions of users, we can onboard them really easily, and we can create this programmable environment for everybody to build. The way we kind of frame the vision, though, is actually beyond that. And I mean, the way I can explain now is really we're building a new internet where people control their assets, but control their data, and control kind of power of governance, power of choice. Now, there's a lot of reasons why the current internet is kind of screwed. And fundamentally, there's few things that are happening. The big tech companies, their incentives have created this flywheel where the current business models are based on attention. And as a person, you have a limited amount of attention, right? There's only 18 hours a day you're awake. And you have, there's a trade-off, right, that they are selling it to advertisers. And especially for big companies, when they already have addressed, a lot of their target market, like imagine a company that has 1 billion users or a few billion users, they need to up the amount of time you spend on that app, because they need to keep posting revenue growth. They need to actually continuously increase revenue as a public company. Otherwise, their kind of multiplier will collapse. They're going to start losing people, and they're going to go in the reverse. And so you have this kind of inherent incentive in a for-profit public company to actually try to monopolize users' attention independently of what they're actually going to do on your platform, right? And to give you an example of the company I worked for, historically, there was a wall between search and ads, right? And they would not communicate. But there's actually an article came out recently where Google Ads team went to search, asking them to get people to spend more time on search, right? And this search usually was get you in and out, right, as quickly as possible. But actually, the way ads work is they need you to spend more time. And so some of the product changes we see now are actually a result of that. And this is true about other companies. Now, generative AI fundamentally is a technology that obviously has a lot of applications, and it's extremely kind of useful. But what it unlocks these companies to do is to continuously improve this loop of how much time and attention you spend on their platform, right? You can imagine the kind of TikTok is not anymore content from creators, but actually a fully generated feed for you that will make you stay longer and longer on it. And so we have this major transformation of business models, right? Away from this attention being distributed across the internet to really consolidating to a few parties. And then everybody else, Reddit, Stack Overflow, are just becoming a data providers. They're just data brokers. And they're kind of losing as well their position. Same with media companies and kind of other platforms that existed historically on the internet. Now, if you zoom in and look under the hood, right, this is how kind of a closed AI model works, right? There's a data set that's been gathered, right, be that from internet or from kind of users contributing. and there's a decision making that happens somewhere, what goes into the training of this model. So again, from my experience, for example, on internet, a statement Barack Obama is born in Hawaii or Barack Obama is born in Kenya occurs about the same amount of times. Because people love talking about conspiracy, and there's ton and ton of conversations about it. Now, you're building a model, you have an evaluation set, it asks where did Barack Obama born. You don't want it to respond Kenya from time to time. So what you do, you go and decide to remove some of this training data because it messes up with your results. And as you can imagine, with the websites that are speculating about Barack Obama's birthplace are right-leaning in US, right? So you start removing Alex Jones' website, maybe Fox News. And so over time, your data actually starts to become very left-leaning naturally because you're actually cleaning up some of the data set. Now, this is happening everywhere, and it's completely opaque to the user who's using it. You have no idea what bias this model has or has not. And these AI models are fundamentally kind of a biased models, right? They extract information and bias from the data. Now, you have also a legal team that says, well, let's not use this data. This is copyrighted. You have ethics team that says, like, well, this is unethical. Let's remove that, right? So you have a lot of kind of decisions that are made before you even get to the model. Now, after the model is built, there's also a lot of these decisions get kind of influenced exactly on when you're asking the model, right? That's when many of you, I'm sure, ask the model, and then maybe a few months later, it's not responding you anymore with the same response. Now, there's even kind of a little bit worse case scenario, which, as far as I know, nobody's doing. But you can imagine that instead of just getting what model says, what data says, you're actually getting something from ads, right? Somebody actually runs an auction on every token and asks, like, well, maybe you ask which card to buy or which candidate to vote, what's the pros and cons. And somebody actually pays off at every token, what should be prioritized. And actually, the ads auctions are way faster than current inference of the models. So all of this is kind of happening. We have no idea, right? And this is kind of natural problem. And actually, there's a paper on sleeper agents now where somebody can inject something in the training data in such a way that you will not even see it until specific condition is met, right? So for example, in your eval set, you have 2024. And then when you use it in production, you put timestamp of 2025. And it actually outputs a different result. For example, if you use it in GitHub Copilot, it installs an NPM package that has malicious software, right? This may be happening right now. We have no idea. And we're going into the world where, because of this business model change, right, there is a lot of kind of conflict that arises, right? Because all of these publishers, all of these creators are pretty much facing a very different world where their content is being kind of reintroduced in a very different way, where it's not a direct one-to-one attention, right, but actually reinterpretation of it through the model. And so we have a lot of this kind of being right now in court. And the problem is that the current existing system of copyright is just not matching the new technology of generative AI. So we have lots of risks with this, right? One is that as we have the regulators and folks trying to regulate this, they don't fully understand this technology. This technology is moving really fast. The people who are coming to regulators to tell them how it should work are the people who running these big companies. And so in turn, the potential regulations are also leading to limiting what open source and academia can do. Academia and open source doesn't have enough resources, neither data or compute, to match this. And we're going into this internet of very misleading, manipulative content just kind of naturally because we don't really have any systems in the internet fabric to design against it. Again, to give you a very kind of specific example, email started as this decentralized protocol where you're supposed to be able to send email to anyone from your own email server. But this is actually a tale of the past. Nowadays, you need to send it from a whitelisted server because by default, Gmail, Outlook think that you are a spammer if you're sending it from your own custom domain, because on majority is a spam. And so we actually went from this decentralized protocol to a completely whitelisted, governed by a few companies system. So this is a fundamental challenge that the current internet doesn't have Sybil resistant. It doesn't have trusted guarantees. It also has lots of risks around cyber vulnerabilities because we're all human. We write code that has bugs. And LLMs will be really good at finding them. And so we need a new structure, a new formula. So we need a new internet, right? The one that optimizes for well-being of individuals, that is built on kind of trustless principles, that has security at the forefront, and it has ownership over data and assets to actually provide back to the people who are actually participating. Now, there's a lot of stuff that needs to happen to make this work, right? Obviously, there's still Web 2 operating system stack that we need, although we need to upgrade it and kind of improve it on security side. We need a lot more about personal data to actually have it kind of user-owned. We need AI that's user-owned. We need trustless interactions through blockchain-generated experience instead of monolithic apps, right? Lots of things. So Web3 and AI, right, feel right now like two spaces, right? One has more hype, one had hype before, but at the end, it's all just labels. Like underneath this is technologies, and all of these technologies together is how we build kind of forward. And AI without kind of Web3 principles, without cryptography, without decentralization, is really kind of doesn't have an alternative to megacorps, right? We see right now even current AI startups, a lot of them are starting to struggle because it actually requires a lot of resources to coordinate to build something in AI space that is like competitive. And you're not going to get that much revenue until later. So you have a very kind of misaligned system. An AI platform shift, right? We have a new platform, new business models, is an opportunity for Web3 to actually introduce these principles, which Web3 didn't actually have before, right? It kind of ended up being just like a casino for speculators. So there's a bunch of stuff that needs to happen on AI Web3. Kind of there's this user-owned AI stack. I'll not go kind of super deep. I'll mention a few examples. Obviously, we'll hear more about AI agents. So on the data side, there's a few things that are extremely important. One is content reputation, right? We're moving into the world where anything you see can be like generated, can be completely faked or hacked. And so we need a cryptographic reputation where for any image, piece of text, et cetera, you're looking at, there is a provenance, there's a way to identify who published it. And I would actually postulate there is no way to determine if something is a deepfake or not. Because if you have a model that is able to determine that, well, I'll train my model of generating deepfakes on your output of this model to generate deepfakes that can trick you. And so what we need is the other way. Like I publish something, even if I use AI to generate it, I put my reputation on it, and I cryptographically sign it. Interestingly, White House actually started signing their videos recently with cryptographic signatures because of this problem. And so we really need just a standard around this that is integrated in all the browsers, in all the apps, and is also kind of on the operating system. We need to move to a future of creator economy, right? The creator economy right now, where we're publishing things in the platform and we are judged based on eyeballs and likes, is not really going to cut in the future. Because again, you're going to be, whatever content you put in, going to be reinterpreted by a language model. And so we need a way to kind of evaluate value of the data, of information, of publication, of content, based on novelty and kind of value it brings to the training of the model and to the inference time. There's a lot also, I mentioned crowdsourcing was our first use case to talk about using kind of human evaluation across the board instead of the current system where we have like 600 benchmarks that we are evaluating things on. Now, on infrastructure side, again, there's a lot of pieces that needs to come together. I'll just mention provable inference because it's one of those concepts that it doesn't matter if you're shitposting on Twitter, but it does matter if you're trying to move millions of dollars based on decision of the language model. And so you do need a way to verify that the content you're receiving is indeed correct. Now, it is a hard problem, and specifically because there's non-determinism at the hardware level. Different GPUs, A100 and H100, multiplying the same matrices will give you a different result. And so there's a way to control for that, but it's extremely hard and requires still a lot more research. Now, going beyond this, how do we have something, the bigger model that is not built by a single party? Well, the only really way to do that is to have lots of smaller models that are actually working together, right? And so you can think of this as a mixture of experts, but instead of having that mixture of experts inside one model, you can have lots of different models that are specialized in different areas, similarly how humans are. And you can ask, when you're asking a question, it's routed to a specific entities which are the best at doing this. And this is like, somewhat similar to agentic frameworks as well, where, there's agents that are specialized in specific actions, and you can route it to them. Now, on application side, I'll just mention this idea of intelligent assets, right? We've built programmable assets, programmable money with blockchain, but you can introduce kind of a more intelligence through natural language and through a way to interact with external parties. Now, the problem is that the LLMs currently are not robust for adversarial behavior. So if you're doing this in a primitive way, you will be potentially jailbroken and everything will be stolen. It's extremely important to design with adversarial behavior in mind. And this is just an example how to jailbreak the model with the model itself. Now, kind of looking forward, you can imagine a world where actually every task, every problem, everything we do is in this kind of future work gig marketplace, where imagine you have like Command K on your laptop. You type in that, hey, I want this to happen. It goes into the marketplace. Somebody bids on it, does it, and somebody validates it's done correctly. Now, the cool thing about this, it doesn't matter who's on the other side doing it. It can be a person, it can be an AI agent, it can be a cat, it can be an alien. You don't really care if they get it done and under the price you asked for. And so this actually equalizes kind of and creates like a marketplace that's equal, and any agent or person can interact with this, and you have a verification in the loop. Now, looking even beyond that, you can imagine having a governance that is actually run by AI model, right? And this is where you have a higher level goal set out, right? Reduce CO2 level on the planet, and it's actually trying to figure out what are the actions that it needs to take, and what is it builds a model of the world to predict what's going to be in the future based on these actions to decide how to affect the world. And you can, through DAOs, put money into it to be able to go and spawn off tasks to different other agents and people to actually do something, grow some trees, maybe reduce emission and design something new. So at Near, we're trying to make the kind of Near home for user-owned AI, because we believe this is the way forward, and there's actually no other alternative. And so as Near Foundation, we're incubating, accelerating, and partnering with projects that are working in this area. So please connect with us. As well as we have a Near AI effort, right? So we brought back where we started. That is focusing on teaching machines to code, specifically Web3 applications. Again, right now in Web3, there's only like 7,000 full-time devs. And so if we want to build out a equal to Web2 environment, we need to scale up how much applications we can build. And so this is really an effort to both advance how the reasoning and capabilities of AI models, as well as offer tools for everyone to build in Web3. I'll just leave you with this idea that we are kind of at this fork right now. We have the current internet with few corporations that have a massive flywheel of economy to increase attention and maximize extraction of value from users, or we build a new user-owned internet. Thank you.